Robert Meyer Burnett joins us to talk a little Star Trek Discovery Season 3, Episodes 6 and 7.
Wow.
Welcome, everybody. Yeah.
As the title of this episode, The Crying Game.
Oh, there was a bunch of people talking about that. Oh, why does everybody have such a problem with Michael Burnham crying? It's because they're too masculine. That's what I seen this morning was the excuse. It's like, no, it's because it's inconsistent with the character and she sucks.
Yeah, well, let me just say that here now, this is Star Trek Recovery, and here we are all going to cry over what has been done to one of our favorite franchises, and we're going to share our feelings, and we're going to give an episode summary to all of you that are not watching, because we're doing it for you. So yeah, and on that note, Dark 616 sent us $2. Here's something for the Brain Bleach Fund. Yeah, that will be needed.
Andre, we're going to take pain. I mean, we're going to take strength in sharing our pain, as Cybok, who has gone conspicuously absent from this show, said so in Star Trek V. Said so smartly. Where is Cybok?
Yeah. Where is Cybok? That's
where is question. He? Michael Burnham never mentions her other half brother.
Yeah, no, he's not needed when we have the supremacy of Michael Burnham to take over. Her awesomeness simply removed him from existence. So
I think Cybok's running a Volvo dealership on Delta Vega now. So
now Spock is the Cybok of the family.
Well, Rob, Delta Vega was a lithium cracking station, so apparently that would have blown up.
Yeah,
there would be no more Delta Vega.
All there would be left is a dealership, because Volvo's a tough car. But anyway,
yeah. Well, and going off of what Andre said here earlier, Kenneth LaRock, I think that's how you say it. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing it.
No, that seems
says,
about right.
I have never seen an episode, but try not to miss the review. If you're going to torture, if they're going to torture themselves and watch it, the least I can do is watch the review. Thanks all. Yes, and I appreciate that, and I'm sure we all do here as well, Kenneth.
I have Star Trek V, actually. I as part of that set you sent me, Tom. I may have to watch that to cleanse my eyeballs.
It's not as bad in retrospect, trust me. After some of the shit we've trudged through, it's not.
It used to be my least favorite Star Trek movie, but here's the thing, that if there's one good thing about Star Trek Discovery, is that it makes all of the bad original Trek seem good by comparison. The sad thing is that I find myself losing interest in it, because the series is just so bad that it actually diminishes my enjoyment and interest in Star Trek as a whole. I'm not proud to say that, but that's how it is.
Yeah, I will gladly take at this point, and the children shall lead them from season 3. At this point, over whatever we're watching now. I mean, it is that bad. It really is. This is, to quote Red Letter Media, Star Trek Discovery is the dumbest written show on television, and I've watched plenty of dumb television.
Well, you live off of dumb television.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, if everybody will indulge me for a second, I think I figured something out here. We've been going at about this all wrong. We've been comparing Star Trek Discovery to Star Trek, right? Maybe, just maybe, to make our point so people actually understand what we're saying and quit calling us gatekeepers.
I mean,
we should actually compare Star Trek Discovery to comparable shows that are actually supposed to be what Star Trek Discovery is pretending to be.
What, you mean like Will and Grace?
No.
But Sheriff Lobo? I mean,
that's what it's coming off as. Trust me, Andre, I get where you're coming from with that joke. That was actually pretty clever. But no, let's compare it to shows like Deadwood. Let's compare it to other shows that are in that same arena where they're spending that kind of money. They supposedly have a great cast. And not only that, the characters keep you interested, even though the story isn't as fast-paced as you would think. Because if you watch Deadwood, very little happens throughout the show. You're just sucked in by the characters. You have the same thing here, only you're not sucked in by the characters. That's one thing I noticed about going through these last 2 episodes. Not a fucking thing happens. But there's a whole lot of goddamn filler and bullshit in between there. And it's a lot of character crap that we don't care about. Why? Because they didn't earn it. and they never. You've got Michael Burnham, who is just insufferable.
What are you serious? Like, I mean, Michael Burnham lost her virginity here, presumably. That meant nothing to you?
Bullshit. She lost her virginity back last year with fucking what's his ass.
She was just a tease.
Ash Tyler.
Oh no, they did it.
Yeah.
That's why she was so hurt.
But now does it count as a threesome because he has a split personality?
It was.
Well, look, I think one of the things about this show that is maddening is they're taking an established universe that we know we have 50 years of knowledge of. Whether you watched all the shows, whether you read technical manuals or behind the scenes material, and they've done something that at first glance should have been incredibly intriguing, which is taking us into the future of that universe. The 32nd century, where the Discovery finds itself, should have been a cornucopia of rich storytelling possibilities. First and foremost, of showing us how would this universe be different? Where would we be 1,000 years in the future? Where would the Discovery find itself? And I think the first impulse would be that, wow, we now are truly going somewhere where everything, even the familiar, was suddenly alien. Imagine our own culture. If any of us went back 1,000 years, what we would find, we would be like gods amongst men. So what would happen now when the men and women and aliens of the Discovery crew are pushed 1,000 years into the future, where they would be men amongst presumably gods? They would be seeing where humanity had evolved and where the galaxy had gone. And basically you would have human beings encountering a hopefully more optimistic future. It could have been Star Trek to the nth degree, where we could have seen our people see the results of what Gene Roddenberry wanted, a utopian civilization that we truly couldn't have even imagined. That future could have shown us things. We have such sights to show you, like the Cenobite said in Hellraiser. But instead of doing that, they decided to take the ultimate example of what our future could be and destroy it. So the Discovery now goes into what Star Trek has always told us would be an optimistic future. And basically, they have now become the gods amongst the remnants of a future civilization that is ultimately lost, destroyed, shattered. The Star Trek universe that we know and love ended up a disastrous mess. And so what it really is saying is that, you know what? I get the metaphor then that we of today we have the future in our hands. And I think as an allegory, that might be really interesting. But what it does is it now makes the Discovery, and by definition, Michael Burnham, the single most important group of people in the universe. The future has nothing to teach us anymore. We are going to fix that future, because after all, we coddled generation, somehow we, the most progressive and advanced and aware people in the universe, are going to fix the future in the image of today.
You know what's so ironic, I think, is that basically the mindset that you're describing right now, that's exactly the kind of mindset that you would have on a planet that Kirk and Spock would visit to set them right. Yep. And teach them that your arrogance knows no bounds, and you are a society in a state of decay, and it's because of the attitudes that you harbor. In that sense, this is actually brilliant Star Trek, because it's a Star Trek that reveals that anyone that has written this, anyone that enjoys this, are in a state of decay, and they're in a need of visit from Kirk and Spock.
It's in psychology, it's called egocentrism, where you are the center of the universe. It's what children literally perceive the world. And I am the center of the universe. You ask it, there's that experiment you try, ask a child who has a sibling, he goes, who's your brother? And they say, oh, Billy's my brother. Does Billy have a brother? No, because they can't perceive of anybody else of the world in any other way. It really is. This is how this generation perceives itself.
Well, in a way, it's incredibly frustrating because for this future that they've taken us to, they've made it generically dystopian. They haven't really figured out why. They've given us a blanket. On one hand, you hear that, okay, this thing happened, the burn, where dilithium and apparently all space travel suddenly was curtailed. But then in every episode, they just throw extra added things in. Oh, well, subspace communications also destroyed. Well, why? Why is subspace communication destroyed? I mean, as we've seen in Star Trek history, like in Star Trek The Motion Picture, there are giant relay stations like Epsilon 9.
But Robert, why do you care when Transley Crusher is going to be bestest buddies with Stamets? Because he knows what it's like to lose somebody.
Well, okay, if you want to go that far, why?
I was being sarcastic.
No, but what I was going to say, which is even weirder, why is it that they have Stamets and Adira and her significant other Gray? Why have they segregated those characters off? Why are all the LGBTQ characters segregated off into one place? Now Michael Burnham is in a relationship. All the black characters are being segregated into one place. The show, for a show that is so prides itself on diversity and inclusion, is becoming a very problematically segregated universe.
But here's the thing, though. Segregation is no longer problematic. Segregation is a goal. Inclusion only means get rid of problematic, toxic, cisgender white males. Everyone else must be on screen, but they must be segregated. There's nothing wrong with segregation as long as everyone is represented. So, like, it's completely ass backwards everything, and what they call diversity has nothing to do with diversity.
Right.
Well, sorry.
Well, no. I apologize. I was just going to say, going back to my initial point back when I was bringing up Deadwood, that was it. It's like none of these characters are consistent. It's like whoever's writing it is schizophrenic. Like, and I know I get it. It's because there's 27 different producers and 12 different writers. I'm sure that's a big part of it. But not to jump ahead with the super chats, that's exactly my point I'm trying to make here. I can't say it as well as Andre does.
Yeah,
it brings up that Mikey Spock has spent a year looking for something she's not even sure she belongs in. And then Tilly wants to be a captain, and yet she hesitates to be number one. I don't know if that goes to kind of the point you were making too, Robert, but that's what I was trying to say. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt your thought process.
No, before we get back into the thought process, guys, let's do a couple of super chats, and then let's get into the specifics. Do a recap of first one episode, discuss that, then we go into the other. That's the one I'm looking forward to, the one that retroactively ruined Spock and the Vulcans. So first, couple of super chats and stickers. Larry sent us $1.99. Thank you so much with like a moose and something. I don't know who that is, but thanks
moose
anyway.
And squirrel.
Rocky and Bullwinkle.
And Crosstalk sent us $5 Canadian saying, how does Burnham act both exceedingly stoic and super emotional only scenes apart? It's so jarring. The editing / writing is weird and disjointed. Yeah, indeed. Again, it's not the actress's fault. Yeah. That's she's doing the best she can with what she has to work with, which isn't much. And after that, then we have Arthur Brogdon for $5 says, Discovery is so bad it makes Picard look credible. That's bad. Oh, I don't know about that. But and then Larry says for $2, Cat Spa is looking better. Spock's brain, anyone? Oh, I'll take Spock's brain any day. And Mercer Create for $2 says, the show is a melodrama. Where is the wit and humor? Right. And Sister Harrow sends us for $5 Australian, a little foxy putting a thumbs up. So thanks for that.
Thank you.
And Crosstalk says for $5, Tom, you said comparing like to like for shows. I feel like this is like Stargate Universe or Enterprise. They should have been their own IPs.
Well, right. No, I was just trying to find a show that's like more around surrounding the characters, and then all the stuff that happens is generally as a result of or to the characters, and that's where I thought of Deadwood. Mad Men is probably another example.
That's an insult to Deadwood.
I know it's an insult to them. My point was,
let's stick with Will and Grace, only dumb and in space,
or Gilmore Girls. That's more apt. Yeah. But no, you're to finish your thought, Robert. Before we jump into the episodes, you were talking about segregation before I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's weird. I think it's weird that they make such a big deal about having these characters. Whether it's LGBTQ characters, however you want to, you've got the trans. I hesitate to call them. I'm not really sure. Is it correct to call him a him? I know Adira would be they. I mean, I'm not sure what the pronouns are. Is she supposed to be?
They keep calling her. So.
Right, and I'm very confused by that. I know the actors. I guess you have an actor, a non-binary actor playing a female, which is fine. But if you're touting that, it's strange. It's just I'm not quite, and I want to go with that. But to go to the actual episodes, when we saw the last episode, was it last week? Die Trying, when they first go to the Federation, even that, I'm very confused by the fact that if the Federation is behind some cloak, and we now have Starfleet and the Federation and everybody all in one place, and they're trying to, and they say there's still Federation member worlds, and we see them all, we see the Federation going off trying to help everybody. Why wouldn't the arrival of Discovery with its spore drive suddenly be the greatest thing that, I mean, it solves all of Starfleet's problems? Why wouldn't, with the fact that they can change matter so quickly, and you've got Adira redesigning the spore drive, why wouldn't they start manufacturing spore drive starships en masse right away? Like, I don't understand. Why wouldn't that be the first thing they do? They spend time refitting the Discovery. Sense. But you've got this, whether they believe in it or not. I mean, it's so weird that they could scan this Starfleet ship, whether it's not in the records or not. They would be able to scan the ship with all of their technology and prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, with quantum registration or whatever, that their story is correct. And the idea, when they show up, they're clearly a Starfleet vessel. The technology 1,000 years hence would be able to discern in seconds that they are who they say they are, whether it's through genetic scans or whatever, and they arrive with the greatest gift ever. It should be right then and there, Starfleet would acquisition the Discovery and go, great, thanks for bringing our property back. And we're now going to deconstruct this ship, and we're now going to fit everybody with a spore drive. And Stamets has tardigrade DNA or whatever the hell they need, and they would suddenly use his blood or whatever they need to use from him, replicate it, duplicate it, and turn the entire Federation into, once again, the most powerful Starfleet in the quadrant, because everybody would have a spore drive.
Of course, that requires a functioning brain, and that is something that the writers of this show severely lacks. But let's get into the specifics. First, let's give a summary of not this week's episode, in which they destroyed Vulcan and Spock. We'll get around to that momentarily, but first the episode before that, which was a complete and total filler episode. I've already forgot what it was called.
Scavenger.
Basically, exactly. There you go. Basically, it started with Book's ship.
I can just read a quick synopsis if you want.
Yeah, okay, fine. Do that then, as long as it's spoiler-filled.
It's not that long, because there's nothing that happens in the show. I told you that was my point I was also getting to before. After receiving a message from Book, Burnham and Georgiou embark on a rogue mission to find him, leaving Saru to pick up the pieces with Admiral Vance. Meanwhile, Stamets forms an unexpected bond with Adira. That's all that really happened in this episode, besides the only part that's left off is that Burnham, of course, got dressed down and then demoted.
Yeah, but here's the most important thing. This is and this goes to what you were saying, Burnett, namely that why didn't they do this? Because here we see in this episode that now a few months have passed, and And they have retrofitted Discovery. So they have obviously gone through the Discovery. They have updated the technology and everything like that. Discovery is right now like an emergency task force. They're back on active duty. But for some weird reason, they have not used the technology anywhere else, and they evidently have not given the Discovery crew any kind of debriefing, because everything that happens, like later episodes, is still a complete and total surprise to them. Like they didn't know that Vulcan is no longer Vulcan and is not part of the Federation. They don't find that out until the next episode, but still, this is the episode when they were supposed to have been like debriefed. They still don't know what the hell is going on after having been with the Federation for months. Have you done something?
I think he accidentally spilled something, maybe.
This blink, Robert. Blink once if you're being held against your will.
Blink once if you can hear us. Period.
I don't think he can hear us.
I don't think he can hear us.
Uh-oh.
Nah, it doesn't seem like he can hear us. Oh well. Hopefully he'll be with us.
Well,
I hope he didn't ruin anything. It looked like he may have accidentally spilled something, and hopefully that didn't mess up everything in his board. So.
But
there he is.
There. Okay.
Let's see.
Can you hear us now?
Can you hear us?
I can hear.
Okay, we can't hear you.
Yeah, now you are gone. At least your audio is gone.
Your mic.
We could hear you before, but we can't hear you now.
Uh-oh.
Okay. Due to technical difficulties, please stand by. Remember, we used to have a lot of that in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah, expect. See, speaking of what we were just saying,
but one of the things.
Wait a second.
He's not muted on our end anyway.
Burnham would have checked up on Vulcan ASAP. Well, yeah, you would think so. And that's like exactly my point. Well, exactly my point.
Even think of something like just something like Austin Powers, where he's he's been frozen for 20 years. You have 20 years of history to catch up on. The world was a considerably different place from 1967 to 1997. I mean, just geopolitically and in terms of technology and everything like that. Now you have a 1,000 years of history and technology to catch up on, and somehow they are still the most important people. Oh no, you guys are good. No, just go out and wing it. Like, come on, really?
No, the most important person is still Michael Burnham, who is the only one who can do anything, and she's needed absolutely everything always.
I had to call Scotty, by the way, to get some.
There he is.
I had to call engineering.
Can you hear us?
Good.
Can you hear us?
Oh yeah,
good.
I had a little bit of a water mishap on my keyboard there.
Oh boy!
Maybe it was because I was so I couldn't. I was getting all wound
up. Your computer had a near-death experience.
Yes, I've saved myself.
But no, let's think about this for a second, though. They're trying to say that Spock is responsible for the reunification of the Vulcans over centuries. And not only that, they're talking about Spock like he's somebody they all know and talk about every day.
Yeah, but Tom, we just jumped an episode forward. Is there something we have to say about the episode before that?
No, because nothing fucking happens. All we know is that we make sure again that Mikey Spock is the only one who can't have a case of the gays. That's it.
Well, the most significant thing is that Mikey Spock is allowed to dress down herself by Admiral What's-His-Face. She is allowed to explain.
You made the right choice.
Yeah, she's demoted by Saru, and me made the right choice. And even when you're disobeying orders, you can't even be properly reprimanded. You can't even be properly reprimanded, and you still got to get the last fucking word in. Yeah.
Well, I mean, how about the fact that this last episode you have Tilly actually taking care of a cat? Like Book's cat, they actually spent time doing that. Like having a scene where Tilly's going to take care of Book's cat while Burnham goes off to find him.
And she's not a cat person. Was that supposed to be like a joke or something?
Bullshit. Well, yeah. I mean, in a science fiction action adventure series, they spend so much time in this show with mundane 21st century scenes and tropes that really have nothing to do with. I mean, it's one thing for Data to have Spot, because the idea that an android in his quest to be human has a pet to try and become more human. Well, that makes sense if somebody has to, if they have a moment, but they've played that beat in Star Trek before. They did that on Next Generation 25, 30 years ago. And now to see it now, I mean, can you imagine in all of the, when you're writing a television show, you have to decide, okay, what is the function of every scene that we're going to have in this episode? What's the story we're telling, and what is the function of this scene? And putting Tilly, to me, a character that has been very, very underserved by the writing. Her function now is at first to end with Tilly, or that's her function in this episode, and then it's a very odd thing. And then maybe having conversations, I mean, later with Saru, and then later on with Burnham about, well, you should have told me, and why did you should have given me a choice. I mean, these are sequences that are incongruous with what Star Trek as a type of storytelling is. And you wonder also in the last episode, at the end of this, you have Adira who's talking to Gray, her boyfriend, in real life. Like, and Stamets comes over and comments on this. Like, who are you talking to? And so it's one thing to have somebody in your mind, but it's a whole other thing. Like in the real world, she's sitting in the mess hall talking to her. And I understand she's a trill, but I would be like, you should go to sickbay right now. There's something going on with you. And
if they did that, they couldn't say that Stamets is the bomb, could they? And that's the whole purpose.
No, but it's all very strange. Again, the using the vernacular. One of the things, as soon as you use that kind of vernacular, you date your show. And the idea that kind of, like, when I watch these things, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to have a sense of verisimilitude with this 20 or 32nd century that you're in now. And to have someone like Adira use the term "the bomb," we don't even have kids her age saying "the bomb"
Not
now.
anymore,
like
right?
I say "the bomb," yo, because I'm betraying that I'm an old man using it, and I use it in kind of a fun way, the same way I use the words "rad" and
I'm with it.
Yeah, all of that.
The first thing I said is, what's next? Funky Fresh? I mean, come on.
But no, you make a great point, Robert, and that bothered the piss out of me too, because for all the shit we give George Lucas on the prequels, the one thing I can't give him shit about, as bad as Wizard is as a, whatever you want to call it, a colloquial or whatever of them, at least it wasn't something he stole from kids that were saying it now. He picked something that he knew could not date itself. You know what I'm saying? Like, kids weren't running around going, oh, that's Wizard. You know, like, he at least just threw that in there. It's his own thing, you know, and it won't date episode 1 then. Now, granted, there's all kinds of other issues we're not going to get into, but my point is just, yeah, at least George had the foresight to know you can't just put modern tropes into these things, just like the Yo Mama joke at the beginning of The Last Jedi is going to date badly.
Right, of course. Well, I wanted to say a few other things too. So, you know, Burnham and Georgiou certainly killed a lot of people. You know, whenever they go to these dystopian scrapyards, whether it was the beginning, the first episode of the season, or in Scavengers, why is it because these people work in these milieus that their lives are suddenly not important and you can just blow people away? I know it's Georgiou, but they literally kill a lot of people. You know, this was not necessarily something, you know, you could say that, okay, in Star Trek in the past, people certainly have died, but where's the stun setting on any of these weapons?
Yeah,
like,
not
why?
To this extent.
Yeah, and again, it becomes part of the trope of making this Road Warrior-esque dystopian future that they found themselves in, that all life other than our main characters is expendable. Everybody can just die whenever they want. We just kill people because, hey, they work in these scrapyard horrible places, so it's okay, you kill them. And I think this casual, it's happened in Picard and it's happened in Discovery. The amount of people that are expendable or that are killed in these episodes is very distasteful. And the way they do it, I mean, they talk about, for a woke show, it's almost like, well, if you're dealing with poor people or people that have bad circumstances, you can kill them. What does it matter?
I think you're right. I think more people die in one episode of Discovery than probably have in the entirety of Next Gen altogether.
But the people that are dying are working class poor. And it's a very interesting, weird thing that happens. Like, they go to these places, whether it's an old West mining facility, whether it's a scrapyard, whether it's the Mos Eisley spaceport, all of the people there are cannon fodder. They're not real people because they're not in Starfleet, and there's certainly people that are engaged in underhanded business. And why is it okay to kill them? And usually the people are dying at the hands of Michael Burnham and whoever she's with. And I'm like, you never see Burnham go, hey, is there a stun setting on any of these guns? Or do we just have to disintegrate people?
Well, to me, it only goes to show, again, the attitude of the writers, and that's something that comes with the woke mentality. It's a fundamental lack of appreciation for true diversity, including of opinion, and for anyone that thinks different from you. Like, okay, they are not with the program, they are not part of us, then they must be destroyed. That's kind of like what I'm getting from it.
No, it's true. I mean, there is a very... This show has a very fascist underpinning to me. Like, we are one step away from a Fourth Reich kind of a mentality. And I feel that way about, what's happening in academia, because if you do not believe in this progressive kumbaya future that only we know about, somehow we are the ones that are educated and we're the ones that know best, we will literally burn you at the stake. And it's like, and also Georgiou is shown as she's having these flashbacks. Now they've shown us with Ash Tyler that when somebody is having some kind of a flashback, they don't know, like Tyler didn't remember he was a Klingon.
Yeah.
Having these. So now they have a trope. There's now a Discovery trope. If a character starts having strange flashbacks, then immediately you're like, are they who they say they are? I mean, clearly there's something going on with Georgiou, something new that we haven't seen before, these flashbacks. And are they tipping their hand? I mean, I happen to know they're going to desecrate something very beloved in Star Trek lore. And they're going to tell us, by the way, the writers are going to say, hey, we've gone back to Harlan Ellison's original conception of this thing. And it's just yet more, it's more of this weird, it's like they go from place to place, the writers deconstructing all of this old Star Trek. And I had somebody say to me that this show is actually a repudiation of the original series. Like, everything that's wrong with Star Trek, Discovery is fixing. And there are viewers with this attitude.
How?
They're going back, and all the idea that Star Trek really was about white Americans who all believed in the colonialism of Kennedy's White House. That's what the 60s was all about. And what's really interesting about that is that at the time, what Star Trek was doing was in fact progressive. And now when you look back at it, were there aspects of the original series that were problematic? Certainly. But at the time, Star Trek was doing more than any other TV show to push an agenda that it believed in. So to go back, and now you have all these people. Now Discovery might indeed be bringing up these concepts, but that doesn't mean it's doing it well.
I mean, first of all, the first few seasons have been doing nothing but shit on Nichelle Nichols' legacy, as far as I was concerned. And if that's the case, if there are people out there who actually believe that, Robert, then they're not only shitting on her legacy, they're shitting on George Takei's legacy. They're shitting on the fact that they had a Russian on the fucking starship. They're shitting on all these other things that were, like you just said, so progressive for the 60s. And I mean, it's just...
Discovery isn't progressive. Like, the modern day progressives who call themselves progressive, they're not progressive by any traditional definition at all. Instead, they are something else. And they are something that would have fit right then with the people that voted a certain person to power in 1930s Germany, because the details might differ, but the attitude, the totalitarian attitude, the you will think as I think, or you must be re-educated because you are a problem. That attitude that we hopefully should have left on history's scrapyard is back in full force. It's back in the writer's room, and it's back on Twitter.
Well,
it's back in the people that enjoy the series and agree with it, and it's scary.
It not only does that to the original series, but it, shits on all the other series too that have had progressive points where we've had the first black captain and the first female captain already and stuff like that. That's the other thing we noticed when we went to STLV last year, was how much the new cast and crew tried to push this idea that they were the first to everything. And it was like, you had so many of the classic crew going, now wait a minute here, you're not Christopher Columbus. We were there first. Leif Erikson discovered it first, sorry to say. Kind of thing, basically, in so many words. That wasn't what they were saying specifically, but Rob knows what I'm talking about. He was there. They had to pipe up several times and remind the new cast that Star Trek has always been progressive.
Well, also, I also think that, to me, the most interesting character on the show now is Georgiou. And the way they write her, it's so like Snidely Whiplash. She's literally this mustache twirling villain, and everything that comes out of her mouth is like some witty bon mot to remind all of us to know that she's a genocidal maniac from the mirror universe. And she's not written she should be the most cunning with the rest of the Discovery crew. She should be in charge. I mean, there's nobody else that has ever proven themselves remotely capable of surviving in this, that has the wits to do so. She's the only one. She shows up and rescues everybody where they need to be rescued. And now what they're doing is they're saddling her. They have to give her a weakness, and it's bizarre. I mean, it's this bizarre thing, and it turns out that this entire show, if people are somehow emotionally actualized in every episode, then they're okay. And I don't understand, all of the characters in the 32nd century are somehow lesser than our crew. Like when Adira says, hey, you're the bomb to Stamets, she is 1,000 years in the future. That would be like me from today going back to the 10th century and finding somebody that I could say, wow, you're the most wise person I've ever met. You've really framed my life in the way I needed it to be framed. So you're the bomb.
Yeah, no, it's better. It would be like some people coming from the Navy of the 1300s, or like some Viking sailors from 1,000 years ago, coming to this age, instantly being part of like the U.S. Navy or something, and people telling them, "Whoa, you're so clever! You're the bomb!
You're what we needed all this time."
Years ago." Yeah, exactly.
Well,
yeah, it's like us saying, I'm so glad that we've got like the Roman army coming to help us.
If Leif Erikson found himself on the USS John F. Kennedy, nobody would say to Leif Erikson, "Wow, you really influenced me."
Good thing you're here.
Good thing you're here. He would be saying, "With this ship, I could conquer many lands."
Well, no, that's the point I was going to get to before about the whole Spock thing. It's like us now sitting here going, if it wasn't for William of Normandy back in 1099 conquering, the Saxon King Harold II, we wouldn't be here today. That's just, we would never say that. Why? Because we don't think that way. And that's the way these people think, and it just bothers the piss out of me. Sorry, Robert, you were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say that what is so strange is these people with all of this advanced technology 1,000 years in the future, if you had a galactic calamity, as the burn has devastated the galaxy, why then would the Federation suddenly give up? Why would the greatest minds of the galaxy, wouldn't that be the first thing that they would want to spend their time solving? And in this new episode, this idea that, okay, we don't know exactly how many years ago the Romulans and the Vulcans reunified, but once again, the writers have to they have to bring it back today, like the reunification of the Vulcans and the Romulans would turn it into a backwards, tribal a place where they're still suffering the exact same kind of indignities between, everybody's like on their separate teams on Vulcan now. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're the Vulcans were a spacefaring, far more advanced race than we were. and they were the ones that were exploring the galaxy long before humanity was, and they knew that the Romulans were offshoots, and this idea that they have come up with, yes, the Romulan society was the Corvus nebula or the star exploded and ruined, it destroyed Romulus, and I don't know where the Remans are, but I guess the Remans are gone too. But they've now turned them into almost the equivalent of I don't know, Muslim sects. Or in my mind, I mean, look, when I grew up and Star Trek was only the original series, Mark Leonard and Leonard Nimoy they were played by Jewish men, and Celia Lofsky, who played T'Pau, was married to a Jewish man. I don't know if she specifically was Jewish.
Well, not only that, a lot of Vulcan is based in Judaism.
Of course. And clearly, I mean, it was, in my mind, especially growing up before there was the Next Generation, the Vulcans were very analogous to the Jewish people. And I was raised a Jew. And I think what they've done, the portrayal of the Vulcans now, by chipping away at them. Now, with Enterprise, I said it didn't bother me that much because the idea that the world was recovering from World War III and that the Vulcans wanted to oversee the transition of humanity into the galactic community slowly made logical sense. So, and you saw over the course of that show, especially with the character of Soval, who came around to understanding what humanity's strengths are. So that made sense. But now the Vulcans, they're acting like they're completely out of character. They've now said that the Vulcans, they think they caused the burn, like the Vulcans would accept that. You know, if they did in fact cause the burn, it would be the Vulcan scientists that would be the first people to solve this problem. You know, the reunified Romulans and Vulcans, if they reunified 500 years ago, they're still saying that they would have the same problems of today. Look at how fast our culture changes. You know, and the idea that the thinking on this show is that over the course of 1,000 years, people would only stop evolving. Like, here we are, and now the reunification of Vulcan and Romulus has happened. We're going to rename a presumably Navarre, and I know where it came from. I know it came from a 60s fanzine, Spockanalia, and I know that Kirsten Beyer came up with this, and it was smart because she knows a lot about Star Trek writing history. But it's like, and I get it. I get where all that came from, and it's a very deep cut in terms of Star Trek fandom. I understand all that, but the portrayal of it all is ludicrous. It makes no sense.
Kind of the same thing with Lower Decks. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
It just seems like they wanted to turn the Vulcans and the Romulans into this sort of intergalactic odd couple. Can two alien races share a planet without driving each other crazy? You know, that they're always at each other. They were thrown together.
The joke is they're actually the same anyway. That's
the
whole point.
Yeah. But it just smacks of, I don't know. There's if incongruity is the right term for it, but it's I'm going to use that term. In that
fucking hubris.
Yeah, in that there's so little thought to any of this, and you're right. If the Vulcans thought that they caused the burns, they would be the burn. They would be the first one to solve it, or even that there are other methods of faster than light propulsion. The Romulans use an artificial singularity, and the Romulans should be dominating the galaxy by now. If they are the only ones that still have faster than light travel, why aren't the Romulans everywhere? There's just no thought put into any of this.
Well, I can answer that. And that's simply because Michael Burnham wasn't there to make them whole. And before we move on to this episode, because I think we've said pretty much everything there is to say about the previous episode that was about that, I'm just going to go through a couple of super chats, and then we go full force into the most recent episode, Unification 3. So going back to the some super chats.
So we usually only have a few left.
Yeah, we have a couple to go through. Sporking News Podcast for $5 said,
Scott.
"Beam me up, Tommy. There is no intelligent writing on STD, only virtue signaling here. I'd rather watch an episode of Bob Ross." At least it's more exciting.
There's happy little trees.
Yeah, and Wes Moody Webcast brings up a point that I can't wait to get into. The whole thing with Mikey's mom made no sense. Oh, you are so right.
Is that even the same actress as it was last season?
We'll get into that. We'll get into it.
Okay, I didn't think it was.
Yeah, and Aluvrian Imikara says for $5, retroactively destroyed the Vulcans. Trek's been on that since Enterprise hit the air. I mean, stupid, vapid, violent. That is the Vulcan of the 21st century. Oh yeah, but there's nothing compared to this, though, is it?
Yeah, but didn't they use the same thing with the? Didn't they say they basically were taken over by that faction of Vulcans that we heard? It was in the first season.
Yeah, they had like this. Yeah, they had like this cultish thing or something. I don't know. We'll get back into it. And says, reference to previous episode, Cat stole Tilly's tongue. And Alex Serra says, so a bunch of SJW writers have been getting fired left and right, like Superman and Lewis Writer. Perhaps Kamran's previous predictions was accurate. Yeah, but here you have a whole writer's room filled with them. So, yeah, we shall see. And GP Spectre says, in the prior STD episode, when Mikey Spock was looking for book, someone was asking for self-sealing stem bolts, a running joke in Deep Space Nine with Nog. Well, yeah, cool. Didn't notice that. Okay, so now with us mostly, not completely, but mostly caught up. Now let's get into Unification Part 3.
While grappling,
the first thing.
I was going to read.
Do the summary. Go on.
While grappling with the fallout of her recent actions and what her future might hold, Burnham agrees to represent the Federation in an intense debate about the release of politically sensitive but highly valuable burn data. With, of course, the Vulcans, which it doesn't mention here for some reason. But yeah, that's it.
Well, can I just say, again, you're talking about 1,000 years in the future. And this idea that Burnham steps up and she says, yes, I was raised on Vulcan. I'm going to invoke all of my Vulcanness and all my Vulcan street cred. Why would she think that anything that she has, or anything she knows about Vulcan would possibly be relevant 1,000 years in the future? Why would anyone think that? I mean, if I was an American and I was an American in 1776 and suddenly I found myself in 2020, would I sit there and go, listen, man, I know exactly what you all need to hear. I can go to any university and I can invoke my knowledge of what I was studying at Harvard in 1776 and bring it to 2020. And I'm the person for the job. And why does she think that? I mean, I know she's the savior of the universe. She's space messiah. But it's when I hear this kind of writing, I'm like, we're 1,000 years from where you used to be. Why do you think that you know anything? You just found out that Vulcan was renamed. So from that position, why do you think you know anything at all about Vulcan society of today? Anything at all?
Before we get into that, I also have to say I think it was so amazing when they went to New Vulcan, to Nivar, and they announced, we have a very special passenger here. We have Michael Burnham. Everyone rejoice. Michael Burnham is back, everyone. Oh, Jesus Christ. It was like, you're right. They're really making her space Jesus that everyone must bow down and worship the greatness of. All the Vulcans must bow down and say, oh, here's the person that made Spock who he was. Everyone fall down to praise the great Burnham.
Well, again, from a storytelling standpoint, they forget that they are, in fact, 1,000 years in the future. And you let's look back at our own planet for experience. If you're going to write something, if you're going to be a good speculative fiction writer, you have to take into consideration our own planet being the basis of what you know about how culture progresses. The idea that anybody from 10 centuries ago would have anything at all relevant, maybe Plato or somebody, he's from 20 centuries ago, whatever, but would have anything relevant to add to our or to know about the political situation, or where she didn't know that she didn't even know that Romulans and Vulcans were an offshoot of one another, because this is pre-Balance of Terror, which doesn't make any sense that she wouldn't have heard that to be maybe perhaps true, having grown up on Vulcan. But all of this doesn't take into account anything to do with the established Star Trek universe. It's just what they decide they want her to be. And what makes it so hard for me to watch this show as an astute reader of science fiction, fantasy, and horror, and as an astute watcher of science fiction and Star Trek my whole life, I'm asking myself these questions. I'm like, look, man, if you're going to go this far into the future, why do you think that you have anything to say to anybody of this time? Why don't you just shut up and listen? Because you don't know shit. And it drives me crazy.
No, you're 100% correct. I agree with you, Robert. I mean, I get it would be one thing if we got to meet a caveman today. That'd be a totally different story. We'd, to be able to talk to one. But we're talking about an era that is well documented. So they would have fucking zero to offer. The only thing they would have to offer is the fact that Discovery went missing, and it shouldn't even be on in any records, but yet everybody knows who everybody is. They have a complete record of Discovery going missing, and they've totally disregarded all their other bullshit too on top of it. So again, we're left to ask the question of why should we even care when they don't care? But again, I digress. Go ahead. Yeah.
But even that idea, throughout Star Trek, how many starships have we seen disappear into temporal anomalies, or be the victim of some disease or something that happened that we don't understand? If the Discovery was listed as being
an entire planet explode,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if the Discovery shows up, there's plenty of evidence to support in the Star Trek universe that a starship showing up, Captain Bozeman, in one of what is that? Cause and Effect. Yeah, the Next Generation episode was in a time loop for 75 years, or Scotty being discovered on the Janolan, crashed on a Dyson sphere. The idea that the Discovery would show up 1,000 years in the future is not something that they would be totally surprised by. So this isn't something that hasn't happened in Star Trek, maybe not in this particular way, but again, it's such a weird, it's so bizarre how they've written all of this, and it's like these people have never read or seen Star Trek, or read or seen any other science fiction, and it drives me bananas.
It's because they haven't. That's, you look at the writing credits. I mean, I know Kristen Beyer she's written Star Trek Voyager novels, but I mean, I don't know. Well, with 21 producers on this show, I don't know what input that they had. You have everybody, and I've compared this. The old saying, "There's that too many cooks spoil the soup," but all the cooks now are the Swedish chef, and there's just food flying everywhere.
Yeah.
And at the end result is something that doesn't even resemble soup.
No, and somebody else brought this question up in the chat, and forgive me because I can't even pay attention to this shit anymore. I'll be honest with you. Are they going by the fucking timeline in the Kelvin timeline where Vulcan exploded in this?
No.
Okay.
No, they are
no.
All right. Because I was confused myself too, because the shit they brought up in the other parts too.
This is, remember, this is the prime timeline.
I know it's supposed to be, but
is the figment of imagination of the alternate license. So it's supposed to be. We are led to believe that this is the same timeline as all of the original Star Trek. Now, in this Star Trek, so this is following on from Picard, it is Romulus that is destroyed.
Okay,
Vulcan
that's right.
Is still there, but Romulus is gone.
That's
so
where I'm confused.
The remaining Romulans have then seemingly relocated back to Vulcan, which we are also led to believe is their planet of origin, which is something I personally call BS on.
I forgot
there's
all about
the story
that.
there, but that's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I forgot all about that shit. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame
and I agree with Natasha. The Muppets did Star Trek better than this shit.
Pigs in space.
Well, I think what is interesting to me is I understand, like, if this show began as Burnham's journey from disgrace to glory once again, none of her, what she does, I mean, how many times this season has she saved the universe? 4? 3, 4? There's only been 7 episodes, so more than 50% of these episodes, Michael Burnham has saved the day individually. And the show is clearly, it's only about her. And Star Trek has always been an ensemble show, whether you have the troika of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy, or the larger troika, or not troika, but some people would say Worf, Data, and Picard, and even leave Riker out of that. But these are ensemble shows. This show is not an ensemble. This is a show about Michael Burnham, and everyone else is a supporting character. And
it reminds me of? It reminds me a little bit of Alf. Because Alf, there you had a puppet, and by default wooden character that everyone else was there to support. This is like that, only 10 times worse. Because here, either like Burnham is always on screen, or she's always talked about, but Alf at the very least wasn't worshipped as the second coming.
Well, right, and not only that, you get into Alf knowing the show's about Elf, and that the family is secondary. And you guys bring up a great point.
Called Family Matters.
Exactly. It's not called the name of the family or anything like that. It's actually called Elf. And again, we have the same problem here with Star Trek, because even whether you go with the trifecta or the troifecta, whichever one you were talking about there, Robert, it doesn't matter. That was the great part about all the original cast, was they could play off each other in different groups. Like, there was a lot of great episodes where you would pop in Scotty instead of Bones or something like that in the original episodes. And then same difference, in TNG, where sometimes it would be, Data and Worf and Picard, like you said, but then sometimes they'd swap out for, Troy or somebody else. That's the best thing, is they all worked in that way. This show has not taken the time to do any of that. And that's the one thing that one episode that I called the best episode so far of Star Trek Discovery, and I still stand by it, which was the second episode of this year, where we had 0 Michael Burnham, and we actually got to see the crew be a crew.
Well, yeah, you're right. And you'd think, like you just pointed out, they would rotate their secondary characters in. I mean, they kind of did that a couple episodes back, where they left one of them behind. The bars.
Yeah, they're just like
the Barzan, the Barzini. I just think Barzini from Godfather, from the Godfather. But it's such a strange thing that they've got this supporting cast that's relatively intriguing, and then they'll give somebody one episode like to shine for a little bit. But there's no sense of an ensemble. And like you said, the second episode of the season, where you got to see Saru work with Tilly or go do something else that was interesting. I mean, to me, Michael Burnham is the least interesting character here, because it's almost as if she's become, in a way, the Mary Sue stories really started with Star Trek. It was Star Trek writers, fanzine writers, and then later novelists writing themselves into stories. And usually, it was female writers. There was more Mary Sue stories than Gary Sue stories. And like I talked about it on my show the other day, Diane Carey's books, Dreadnought and Battle Stations, were officially published Star Trek novels that were very much guilty of that. But it feels to me like the writers of this show, Michael Burnham is a proxy for them. And it's like, I went through therapy, so I had a problem with my mother. This episode literally is about Burnham's mother showing up and saving her. So if Michael Burnham isn't as important, then her mother is, and her mother. It's so bizarre to me that, what, the rest of the crew has nothing to offer Michael Burnham in a real moment of need. So let's have her mom show up and hold her fucking hand.
Can we take a moment to discuss that? Because they needed like someone from this Romulan cult, which presumably takes a lifetime to be there and to get to like that position, to come and mediate. How in the name of hell did Michael Burnham's mother came to be a member of that Romulan cult and to be entrusted with the position to end up there? How in the name of all that's unholy did that happen?
And also, if you're invoking a Vulcan tradition that she knew from 1,000 years ago, Why would Romulans be involved in that at all? I mean, wouldn't it, like, if basically you're going to have your PhD defense invoking a Romulan thing, I mean, a Vulcan, whatever it's called, you're going to defend your PhD using wouldn't it only be Vulcans? Because it is in fact a Vulcan issue. Reunification doesn't mean that suddenly you're going to invite or include Romulans in all of this. And if you are going to include Romulans in all of this, then wouldn't that mean that whatever the thing that she invoked would have changed enough over 1,000 years that something else could happen? And also the Vulcans there, if you're going to invoke this idea, and wouldn't the Vulcans want to know what she found? Like, wouldn't they want to get together and go, the Vulcans would be like, it's only logical that if you're bringing us new information and it is actually useful, that we would examine this information and discuss it. We haven't been roaming around the galaxy for 150 years. And you have, and your situation is unique. So maybe you brought a new perspective, being that you're from 1,000 years in the past, that we didn't think about. So please, why don't we sit down and discuss what's going on? The fact that the Vulcans are like ashamed that they might have, it doesn't make any sense at all. It's so stupid. And it's all an excuse to literally set up this session for Michael Burnham and her mother to have this encounter, and her mother can dress her down and tell her you're not the Messiah, but her mother is now essentially the Godhead figure here, because she's also come from the past. I mean, they could have brought in a guest star, a really compelling Romulan guest star. And the Romulan guest star could have been the one that helped her. Kind of like in Picard, the woman, the leader of the Quat Milat, was I like that actress. And why not do something like that? But nope, they have to introduce her mother as like the most important advocate as part of the Romulan order. Why didn't they bring in somebody? Why didn't they bring in a great Romulan character? I thought the Vulcan president was great. She was great. I really liked her a lot. And I loved her relationship that she was developing with Saru. And I'm like, why don't they make this show about the Romulan or the Vulcan president and Saru trying to figure out what happened to the galaxy and get rid of Michael Burnham? That's a Star Trek show.
Well, I've said it from the start that the more interesting characters are being ignored, like Saru. Like I said, think about that. You have a character who his instinct is to avoid any danger whatsoever, but yet he has found himself as the captain of a starship, and the kind of conflicts that you would have to go through. And I thought that would be a much more interesting show and dynamic, at least for the show, than Michael Burnham. Michael Burnham is old hat. We have seen half humans, half Vulcans. I imagine a human raised by Vulcan ain't going to be much different.
Well, but she was raised by Vulcans 1,000 years ago.
Exactly. Like, there's nothing that special about her. That's what I'm trying to say, is there's nothing that's so special about her that we've never seen in Star Trek before. Saru, on the other hand, is unlike any character we've really seen on Star Trek before.
Well, and there's the character. I mean, Saru's journey, like you said, from coming from a race that is designed to fear death. And now he's put in a position of authority with all these people. All of these souls are now, he's in charge of all of them.
He has to make some decisions that may cause life or death. Yeah,
absolutely. And his journey is a very Star Trekian journey. And I find that the one thing that they've done this season that I really am interested in is his relationship with Vance, with the head of Starfleet, and now his relationship with the Vulcan president. Those are interesting Star Trek relationships, in my opinion. Those are the kind of things, in the way they talk to one another. They act like it feels like it's Star Trek. But now we have to go into this, and let's face it, at the end of this episode, the character of Spock, as written from 1966 to 91, that character now, the writers came and said, nope. The character that was his own person, his own Vulcan, everything that he was, everything that he did, everything that all we knew about him was a result of his relationship with his older adopted sister, Michael Burnham. I mean, I was watching that. I wanted to punch my TV screen. And I'm like, how dare you? How dare you think that whatever you're writing is somehow more important than the legacy that this show was built on. You know, you're now telling us that you guys wouldn't even have a job if the character of Spock wasn't as well written as he was over the course of the decades that we watched him on the TV and movie screen. I mean, how do you besmirch the legacy of Leonard Nimoy as an actor?
Well, by putting him on screen in this, that's how.
Oh yeah, and everything you say, I agree with you 100%, Robert. And that's everything that's wrong with this show, and then some. I mean, you're speaking right to my heart when I said, like, that's my point with Saru. Is I said that is the kind of character Star Trek should be about, not Mikey Spock. Hell, not even really Tilly and some of these other characters we got, because Tilly is a piss poor example of somebody who's supposed to have some kind of, you know, obviously she's on the spectrum, right? And then they've dropped this whole thing. Didn't she have like some totally like mental like issue last season that they've totally dropped? Did I miss something here? Because wasn't she like talking or that ghost child thing or whatever, or did that go away? Like, that's what I'm trying to, like, that's the other thing here. They introduce and they drop so many storylines in this show that it's so like, do they even really pay that much attention? Because I've gotten to the point where I don't care enough to pay attention. Like, that's the problem.
Well, yeah, I think everybody, the show plays so fast and loose with their own. I mean, look, the Qualat came from Picard. So their new Romulan mythology is only their own Romulan mythology, and it just seems the reunification of their civilization is very strange. On one hand, there's clearly tension between the Vulcans and the Romulans, and yet you can have a Qualat Malat advocate in this important PhD challenge or PhD presentation, and it's a very bizarre. The whole thing is very strange, and again, it's not thought through. And so this whole episode was all about the reunification of Burnham and her mother giving her some motherly advice so she can get over her bad self. And as a result of that, everybody decides, well, you're the greatest woman once again in the universe. The president slips her the data she needs. Everybody's happy. She's shown to be even more infallible than she was just because her mom gave her a little nudge. And Leonard Nimoy's Spock was the man he was because of her.
Yeah.
You know,
well, here's my. Go ahead, Robert.
But I was about to say, you know, the whole thing about this, that's that same sisterhood that bashes their heads in with rocks when they see the horrible truth of the guy. I mean, how do they have any members left? I mean, they should all have big dents in their foreheads by now. I mean, there should be nobody left that they're so horrified, or they like you said, they don't even care enough to pay attention to their own internal canon, let alone Star Trek canon.
On that note, that actually was something that irked me. Remember the first episode of the season when Michael Burnham was looking for Starfleet, or no, sorry, she was looking for the Federation, and she found this one outpost of the guy who wasn't Starfleet, but he dreamt of Starfleet and what it represented. He had spent his entire life in this abandoned Starfleet station or Federation station, and he had just been there his whole life, like his father before him and his grandfather before him, just waiting on the off chance that someone from Federation might come. And then Burnham finds the Federation, and she just leaves him there.
I know you just think
leaves him there.
You'd think that somebody would be like, Burnham would have said, "Hey, Vance, you know, there's somebody who's been working for Starfleet for 40 years that you might want to get in touch with, and maybe we should bring him here for a debriefing."
Speaking of debriefing,
Right.
We love him so much.
Right. Fuck Mikey Burnham, right? Fuck her mum.
Here we go. Here we go.
How are you,
sorry,
sir?
hold on. I've still got the stream running, so I've still got the sound. Sorry, I thought.
He's getting like double
voice. I was speaking. Yeah, sorry, I had to mute the screen. So
welcome.
They're being diligent. I was someone speaking. I better be quiet. And then, oh no, I'm just watching the stream.
I felt like the stream was getting a little too serious.
Too toxic, so you probably lower it down a bit. with
As,
me.
come on, buddy, don't let me down. Let's lay it on me. Come on.
No, I've been listening to Robert. I think Robert said some bang on points today. And whenever you're asked a question, you've got to just return to the answer that it's because Mikey Spock needs two, and then it's whatever your question was. And it's just so frustrating because she's probably the least interesting character in the show, because there's no development for her. She started off in season 1 as this criminal, and now she's telling her captain what to do. Nay, she's telling the head of Starfleet what to do. At the end of last week, she was removed as number 1. At the start of this week, she was number 1 again and going to the meeting with Saru. That shouldn't have happened. She was removed from that.
There's no consequences. No.
This 1,000-year gap between them going missing and turning up today is so badly explored because they've literally just pressed pause on the VCR and just cut in the burn, which is going to be short for Burnham. I guarantee you. It will be. It's going to be short for Burnham because it's going to have some relation to Burnham. That's why it's going to be called the Burn.
I don't think you're wrong,
or whatever it is. But it's like time stood still and they just waited for Discovery to turn up 1,000 years later and tell them what to do.
Right.
This universe has just waited for the Messiah ship to come, and Mikey is Saint Mikey of Burnham to come out and bless everyone with her patronizing self-righteousness.
Well, and also another thing that they have thrown up this weird false idea that Burnham is spending this entire season trying to figure out where does she fit in with the Discovery crew, because she's been, it took a year for them to be reunited. And now at the end of this episode, she finally is deciding, well, I really belong here. But this to me was a weird, completely contrived detour that they didn't need to take. I mean, you're either a Starfleet crew member or you're not. And being separated, it's almost as if the Starfleet crew here, they never thought that they were really going 1,000 years into the future, because no one's ever, from the very beginning, everybody was missing their parents and missing the lives that passed them by. I mean, I would think that there would be a contingent of this crew that this would be the most exciting opportunity they could possibly have. Anyone who's on a spacefaring ship that goes out into the edge of the final frontier for years at a time, the last thing that they're going to have a problem with is separating themselves from their families for extended periods. They're the kind of people that want to find adventure, and they know when they step on a starship, they might never come back.
Well, not only that, they made the choice to go there for Michael Burnham, and Michael Burnham know they made the choice to go there for her, but yet that's the whole thing that's been a contingent.
But it's Lord of the Flies, though. It's not. Yeah. It's not adults. It's Lord of the Flies. It's kids running the show when the adults aren't there and they're not thinking their decision through, and consequences happen, and then they turn around and go, we threw a rock on Piggy's head.
Kids running the show. Fat Albert and the Junkyard Gang ran a better
on a derelict ship. No less
out of the junkyard. Come on.
Well, Michael Aaron 1701 says exactly what I was thinking when Az said that. He kept thinking the Burn was named after Burnham, probably because of her time travel suit. Yeah, as soon as she went through time, I think that's when the Burn happened. I guarantee you, Az is probably right, because that's how clever these guys are. They're not. Because we have come up with, over the years, so many more clever outlets that they could have went to, and they never did. And that's
there's just nothing clever about it.
Yeah, no, this show has gotten to the point where it's written itself into a stupid corner. And I literally say that as
I don't think it has. I don't think it has written itself into a corner, because if it goes anywhere near a corner, it just goes off in a different direction and forgets the corner that it was going towards.
You're not wrong.
Well, what happens is, I've noticed the pattern is, what happens is, even if they write themselves into a corner, there's always an overly simplistic explanation for everything. Well, how come Michael Burnham has never mentioned Spock? Oh, well, she was on a starship. Nobody talks about her. Everything was classified. What happened to to the spore drive. Well, it's been classified. Nobody talks about it. Wait a minute. Discovery went to the future. Yeah. Nobody, under penalty of death, nobody's supposed to talk about it. There's an overly simplistic explanation for everything because they do not think these things through one iota. They do not. This is the most poorly conceived series, the whole thing from stem to stern. It's incredibly poorly written. It's poorly conceived. Everything about it. It stinks on ice. And for anyone who actually thinks that this is thought-provoking television, up yours, man. Come on. Really. I've seen a Bazooka Joe rapper better written than this.
Oh, well, you're not wrong.
Before
we share feelings, let's have you in the audience share your feelings, because we got a couple of super chats in the meantime. I'm just going to get caught up real quickly.
And grow stronger in the sharing.
Yeah, so everyone share your feelings. It's good to share.
Cry.
Oh, yeah. Star Trek recovery for a reason.
Constantly cry.
Yeah,
every sentence, every single solitary sentence. I was paying particular attention. This is just a little bit off tangent, but I was paying very particular attention this week at just how they spoke mundane dialogue. Because in the Next Generation, for example, even the most mundane dialogue worked, because it was just, you could see the balance of power between who was doing the speaking. You could see who was talking to who or whom, and what they needed them to do, and the reaction of that person. Mr. Data, I want you to do such and such. Yes, yes, Captain. Go around it. Every time in this episode, if you go back and watch, even the most mundane dialogue, they try and put an emotional spin on it. Mikey Burnham's eyes are either constantly, and she's always putting some sort of face on. Just when your admiral's talking, when your captain's talking, shut up, just listen, absorb what they're saying. Don't do all this like a 5-year-old desperate to get there. Sir, me, sir. I got an idea, sir. I can't take the whole thing seriously when they don't behave like officers, like Starfleet officers. If this was a high school in space that was just flying from Earth to Mars, and they went through a time loop or something like that, which spun them out into the universe, I could understand. But nobody in the ship, apart from Saru, acts like a Starfleet officer.
Yeah, their psychological profiles would have made them unfit for duty.
They're a bunch of children.
Yeah, and there's no Zoloft in the 3200s. I mean, Jesus, come on.
Everybody's got emotional issues. Andre, let's get into some of those super chats real quick.
Yeah. ActionCom says the JJ movies had Khan develop warships. Yeah, that was stupid too. But this is worse. And Lost Jedi 22 says worst captain ever. Saru the Meek. While Larry says Frankensteinian thing coupled by idiot writers. Yeah,
he just wanted you to say that. But can I just say one thing about the Saru thing? Again, as he is in the show, with this show, it's a shit character. But if you gave that character to a decent writer who understood Star Trek, like Robert and I were saying, that character could be amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, continue.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Ryan Landis says they need new uniforms with pockets in them to keep their Kleenex, since every scene involves crying and hugging it out. # disco sucks. And Stubble McShave sent us 50 Swedish krona, tack så mycket, saying, I just started a rewatch of the Shogun miniseries from 1980.
Oh, it's one of my favorite things of all time.
Yeah, that one is great. Discovery crew would be just as unaware of the culture as Blackthorn was, and just as lost. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're absolutely not wrong.
And that, by the way, that's a really good, for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's based on James Clavell's novel, but it's about, an English sailor who winds up on the shores of Japan, and it's like the greatest Star Trek episode you'll ever watch, because They don't do a lot of Japanese subtitles or anything like that. So you as an audience member are going on this journey, and you're learning about Japanese culture as Blackthorn does. And it's compelling. I mean, Toshiro Mifune's in it. It's fantastic. And if you love Star Trek, you will love Shogun, and you'll see how Discovery could have been done if they were, at all interested in looking at someone like James Clavell as an example.
I think you're being optimistic there. Moving on with a couple of super chats. Lost Jedi 22 says, how do you enforce temporal accords on people traveling to the future from a time before its passing? People from the past could be showing up all the time.
I saw that super chat and it made me chuckle.
And Arthur Brogdon
we prevented people from the past by infecting the future.
There you go.
Passage of time. The regular passage of time with present. Okay. Jesus Christ. I think it's you, Robert, that pointed that out when we're talking about it. It was just like.
And Arthur Brogdon says, I thought canon was Vulcans, Roms, and Klingons were the result of an ancient race doing genetic seeded, related but not derivative. But that's canon, and canon doesn't matter here now, does it? And Bird of Prey 5 says, we were told from before the show started that Burnham was going to be the main character, and it set off alarms even then, before we saw a single episode. Yeah, but we didn't think it was going to be this bad now, did we? And the English Gent, another one, says for £5 in New Trek, Vulcan seems to always have a moon. In Legacy Trek, Vulcan never had any moons. They wrote themselves into not being canon. I don't think they even noticed that, to be honest.
They just added the moon because it looks just because it looks cool. Oh yeah, that looks cool.
Vulcan doesn't have a moon.
Yeah, and Arthur Brogdon said for another $10, thank you so much, because by bringing in the mother, you get the ultimate wise old Black Earth goddess trope. Oh yeah, that's true. Talk about pandering. And Captain Hare came in late, so he says, I'm late. Is Rob suffering?
Every day.
That Burnett might be suffering more on this one.
By the way, I have to go, unfortunately. But now that Az is here, he can hold up my end.
Ladies.
Oh, I love how he just...
I hate to do that. I have to run. I have so
We've
much...
gone a little bit longer than we had anticipated.
I have so much more to say, but... yes, I must take my leave of you, or I would say to Az, be seeing you.
Be seeing you.
And I this discussion is fascinating. And there's one thing I would really like to say though.
Yeah.
I think we're having a pretty cogent, interesting conversation that is a critique of not only these episodes but of Discovery in general. It is not toxic to be reviewing something like this. I mean, there's ways of doing it. I think sometimes, admittedly, we travel into territory that could be deemed toxic, but it is not to criticize something cogently and to back it up with argument and example is important. And this kind of criticism matters. And the idea that we're going to say something that might be contrary to what you think or believe doesn't mean we're going to stop you from enjoying what you like. We're offering an opinion. You can choose to listen to it or not. If you love Discovery, good for you. Maybe it's the first Star Trek you've ever seen. Maybe it'll lead you back to the Next Generation in the original series. And those will show you what Discovery has lacked. And you'll discover it on your own because these shows don't need us to tell you that they're great. Television history has done that for us. Mm-hmm. So I just want to say that because, some people forget that criticism is good. Listening to opposing viewpoints is helpful. It helps you maybe define what it is you believe. In which case, maybe your arguments about why you like something could be stronger. I just want to say that as I leave you all. And I want to thank you very much for allowing me to participate in these discussions because I love them.
And we love having you, so thanks for joining us. And everyone, be sure to go check out, subscribe to the Burnett Network. And if you are already subscribed, then make sure that you are still subscribed, because YouTube likes to play games and unsubscribe people without their consent.
Oh, that's been happening on my channel for the last month and a half in a big way. So that had never happened before in the 2 years I've had my channel. So that's very interesting.
Absolutely. So everyone, go and check all the subscriptions for all of your favorite channels and make sure that you are indeed still subscribed, because that is not guaranteed. And if you're not, then absolutely go check out the Burnett Network, and the absolutely most positive channel in our community, and one that is absolutely in no way, shape, or form gatekeeping of Star Trek. Rather, it's keeping the legacy of Star Trek and introducing newcomers to what Star Trek is and should be all about.
Well, you know who is gatekeeping? The Guardian from City on the Edge of Forever. And all I can say is, buckle your seatbelts.
But I like the way that you got called a gatekeeper while involved in cogent discussion.
Buckle up, buckaroos.
That's gatekeeping. Having open discussion with somebody, responding to them respectfully, even if you didn't agree with them. That's gatekeeping. Modern Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. Modern Twitter.
Well, gents, I bid you all farewell and safe travels, and hope to see you soon. And as I know I'm going to see you soon, because we're going to be Fallout boys this week.
Not and the terrible game from Bethesda, but
or the band. If you're a Fallout Boy fan, you know.
Yeah. I'll see you Wednesday, sir.
Yes, sir. I'll see you.
Yes, indeed.
Looks like I'm farting, doesn't it?
It does. Or taking a shit.
Maybe I will.
Yeah,
we ain't gonna stop you.
Yeah, Mr. H actually said that we introduced him to Star Trek, and he had never seen it before, and it gave him or to Star Trek Discovery straight into season 3, which is like the best season in many ways. And his review was that it gave him diarrhea.
I don't know how you could call. I mean, I've seen the first half of season 1. I didn't see the rest of season 1. I didn't see season 2, and I've seen season 3 so far. But this, it's like calling a steaming turd on the pavement. Well, it's better than the diarrhea that's in the alleyway. It's still no good.
Yeah. On that note, Simon just sent us $20. Thank you so much, saying either rename the show Burnham's Mary Sue Adventures or fire the character of the ship. Well, ideally from the airlock. She doesn't respect command. Stories need to shift to Saru as the main character, because Discovery is commanded by Saru, indeed. And yes, I know we just skipped over a bunch of super chats, and we'll get back to every single one of them, but this one happened to be on screen.
But I just want to say though, as you know, we hear that argument all the time. Oh well, this is the only Star Trek we got. It's better than nothing. I'm like, is it? No. Is it? I'd rather have
nothing would be better than this.
I'd rather have no Star Trek at this point.
Robert was talking about, giving opinions isn't toxic. Having discussions isn't toxic. Having debate isn't toxic. And that's quite right. And then I have to say to myself, but is shitting over the career of Leonard Nimoy as Spock toxic? And I would personally say, yes, it is. Because you are making a concerted decision to usurp everything that actor did, that the character stood for so many decades, that the fandom supported and loved and was built around. And then you come along just a couple of years ago and you just want to retcon the whole lot. To me, that's toxic, because that's taking away from the fandom. That is making a concerted effort to retcon what made the character Spock, and it was Leonard Nimoy. That's what made Spock.
Yeah, and now they are retroactively trying to destroy his legacy and replace him with a superior Spock from their point of view. That that anyone with any kind of sense and
funny how a lot of these
everything just wants to get off the screen.
So funny how they're like trying to change the point of view in a lot of these franchises. That's also a term we keep hearing in like Star Wars and to a point in Doctor Who and stuff as well, isn't it? You know, they just got to destroy the past and change the point of view and, you know, all that business.
Well, it's not just there. It's like outright policy for many. Destroy the past to build a new present and better future.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
Yeah. That was the motto. And it seems to be a concerted effort behind it.
That was an actual line in Star Wars, folks. I get you.
Yeah. Absolutely. They weren't kidding around.
No, well, the other line was to kill it if you have to, but I'm talking about the "I get you" when he's talking to Ray.
Yeah, that was that's going to age so well.
The two angsty teenagers having a Skype meeting and through the Force. Anyway, this is not Star Wars talk. This is Star Trek talk. Are we caught up on super chats, or are there still a few more?
No, we still have a couple of more to go through, so I'm going to breeze through the remaining ones, so we'll be up to speed. R-Far sent us $5 New Zealand dollars saying, we all forgot that Discovery was recruited in spite of being 1,000 years out of date. That's a bit like the US Navy today hiring a Viking longboat. Yeah, it kind of is. We made that point. And Nietzschewicz for €5 says, I blame aromatherapy and yoga for STD. Yeah, I think that the people writing probably have had a little bit too much of that.
Well, yoga is not necessarily a bad thing. Walt Frazier, a basketball player in the 70s, used to do yoga for his back. And he said at the time, people thought I was saying yogurt because nobody knew what it was.
Yeah, but he didn't do it as a complete and total lifestyle. He wasn't a complete hippie, was he?
Well, no, Clyde was so cool that his job was just being cool. He just happened to play basketball.
Exactly. Like everything in moderation, even yoga. But like, come on, like there's limits. And that's something that the people in this writer's room have blown way past. And then Captain Hare, this one is for you, Ass, says, can Ass be in the inevitable Ghostbusters 2016 stream? I want to see his reaction to Rob's descent into insanity. Well, yeah, because Ass, you see, Rob, he actually hasn't seen Ghostbusters.
I haven't either.
Oh, there you go.
Well,
two people that we can sink into insanity.
Well, there's no sinking. I've been insane for quite some time. I mean, so...
I have no intention of watching Ghostbusters 2016. None.
How well you're watching something?
I've not watched Captain Marvel. I've not watched Ghostbusters. I do subscribe if I'm doing something to coin off. Sure, but if I'm not, I will not subscribe to spending money on shit I don't want to watch.
I envy the brain cells you haven't squandered on those abominations.
It's not going to enhance my life watching it, and I might knock something relevant out of my brain if I do so.
No, but here's the thing: it's going to enhance Captain Hare's life if we watch it and suffer.
Good luck.
Yeah, and M Tax Shark sent us $5 saying, to Ass's point, compare/contrast the relationships in the DS9 episode with the cadet-run starship during the Dominion War and Discovery. That's quite a contrast. And Astroforum says, frack STD. Let's talk about The Expanse instead. Yeah, that from what I gather is better, but I haven't seen it myself. And GP Spectre says, nice to hear Ass support what I've been saying and posting on other sites ever since STD used the term burn. So you have someone agreeing with you. Great minds must evidently think alike.
I think it was Gary for Nerdrotic that I heard it first from.
It does seem very tempting that they would call it the burn.
Of course, it's all about narcissism and their own.
I was going to say, well, it was Mr. H was saying that he was thinking it was a call to the time it would have been filmed would have been right around the same time we were doing.
Actually, it was me that said that, but I did say it to him.
Yeah, but he's like, well, he kept expressing it then. I know that. He's like, the burn. He kept bringing it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Feel the burn. And the hard left was the other thing he kept.
Yeah, that was the thing that was like the hard left and the burn, but he was referring to the riots. So,
no, you're right. Yeah. You're right. You brought up the burn part. He brought up the hard left part. That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot.
And Ben Parker said the ship was crying because it was assaulted.
I'm surprised the Discovery.
We don't need you anymore, Rob. We got the audience.
No, there you go.
And Jake Sully says, how much of the man Spock had become was thanks to you? Would you say that's disrespectful? I want to hear you on this. Was it disrespectful, the sentence? How much of the man Spock had become was thanks to you?
Yes, of course it is. Because it says that Spock can't be his own. He wasn't his own person unless Mikey Spock made it that way. This is what I was saying before about the total disrespect for Leonard Nimoy, and he's the one that developed Spock. He's the one that had input to Spock. He's the one that came up with the idea for the Vulcan death grip. He's the one that made the character that was very stoic so enjoyable to watch, with his logic and reason and his mannerisms and relationship and interaction with Shatner. And there's 50 plus years later, we are still discussing TOS. We're still watching TOS. And then 2.5 years ago, a bunch of fucking hippie narcissists come along and they're just like, yeah, we see this Star Trek, and we're just going to take it all away from you and retroactively change everything. Yeah, it'd be a shame if your toys broke, wouldn't it? And so it's not just, like I said, is it disrespectful? I would go further. I would say it's toxic. It is disgusting. It is almost criminal, because they are making a conscientious decision to try and destroy the development of that character with Mary Sue.
No, you're totally right.
Indeed.
Yeah, and it is. It's exactly what they are. They're like a bunch of fucking bullies coming in and say, "Oh, well, would it be such a horrible thing for something bad to happen to your little Star Trek? Well, we're going to teach you a lesson." And that's what they're trying to do. And they're doing it on purpose. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of people say in the chat, and rightfully so, or at least ask the question, why do we watch this if we dislike it so much? Well, A, we love Star Trek. And B, a lot of what they're doing is to deliberately piss us off. But it's not we're upset, but not for the reasons they think we are. That's the issue. They think we're upset for a bunch of istophobe reasons. We're just upset that they've drug a bunch of Gilmore Girls level writing into Star Trek. And they feel like it's their platform and their necessity to teach us how racist we are and how homophobic we are and how misogynist we are and how many other istophobes can I throw in there, guys, before the YouTube cops come get us.
Just add it to the list of everything that...
no, Mecca's right here. They're actively either trying to keep us out, or they're trying to change the way we think, because they think the way we think is wrong. Like we literally
have to be re-educated.
Exactly. That's my point. Yes.
The gatekeepers were the guys standing on the wall on the ramparts, keeping bad things out. That was, back in the ancient times. They were the ones to send the first warning, the gatekeepers. So I don't consider being a gatekeeper necessarily a bad thing. We're the ones trying to warn you, hey, this is shit. Besides, who are the real gatekeepers? Us? Or the people like Alex Kurtzman and Kathleen Kennedy that say we don't want you in our fandom anymore?
Exactly my point. And that's the thing, is I don't even see us as gatekeepers so much as I do key masters, especially Robert Meyer Burnett, for example. He is somebody who will show you the way. He is the real Mikey Spock. You know what I mean? Like, he is the one.
I'd rather have him writing this fucking show.
Exactly my point, as he understands what Star Trek is. He is not a fan who will turn another possible fan away. That's what these fuckers are doing, though. They're pushing out all the old fans at the chance they might get some young new fans, but they're not. They're not. I haven't seen any proof of it yet.
Oh,
This Star Trek and Star Wars, everything else used to be passed down from father to son, mother to daughter, mother to son, father to, older brother to older brother. I started watching Star Trek because my older brother was watching it, and he originally watched it back in the 60s. I don't have any kids, but I would love to say this is Star Trek. I used to watch this when I was your age. Really? You used to watch it? I'm like, yeah, that's right. I
bet you that's what Little Rob actually sounded like too.
Magway.
Sorry.
You're not that far off.
No, but you're right. It's a generational thing. It was something that, and I'm trying not to cry, Keith Skywalker, while I talk about this. I know it's so emotional. It's Star Trek. But no, you're right, 100%. This is something that was a generational thing. It was a familial thing. It was a friend thing. It was a very accepted group. Now, granted, Star Trek was always one of those groups that was a little bit more cliquish than some of the other ones. Don't get me wrong. But I don't ever feel like I was ever an outcast in the Star Trek community, even though I considered myself more of a casual fan and not so much a Trekkie or a Trekker. I mean, I understand there is a level of fandom in the community, and I respect that. But nobody else respects that anymore, especially the quote-unquote new fans and the fans that have turned on the classic fans. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, I don't know. Anyway, Andre, was there any more Super Chats? Are you still there? I see you had to mute yourself. So
yes, we have a couple more super chats to run through real quick. There was one that I missed a little bit earlier. Arthur Brogdon said, listening to you all, I'm beginning to wonder if you actually know the actual history of progressives, i.e. eugenics, expert techno administrators as benign despots, etc. Woodrow Wilson ring a bell? I think that's a little bit beyond the scope of this channel, but yeah, I see what you're saying. And carrying on then from the more recent ones, we're almost caught up now. RP says the #1 position is now a college internship, apparently. Yeah, it does seem like that, doesn't it? And Nightwish Fan 1991 says, I was beginning to worry. I need my weekly dose of Midnight's Edge STD pain. Yeah, you enjoy our pain, don't you? So yeah. And Michael Aarons 1701 sent us $1 with no message, but thanks for the support anyway. And Space Plumber 41 says, for 10 Canadian dollars, thank you so much. Isn't it weird that all the captains were shocked that Discovery had the spore drive, but in earlier shows they jumped right in space dock in front of a bunch of ships? Yeah, well, the writers don't know what the hell they're doing, do they? And almost caught up now. Michael Aarons 1701 says again, I joked in 2001 that JJ created a way to introduce people to better writing. Yeah, that joke did not age well. And Fat Steven Seagal beat up, I can't see he beat
Newsom.
Newsom. Oh, well deserved. Beat him hard. And he says, I love all your hair. Now let's cry and get promotions. Yeah, it's the Burnham way, isn't it? And Jan Michael Shuslev, sorry for butchering that, sent us 25 Polish zloty. Thank you so much, saying, with Tilly as XO, STD teaches us that nepotism is okay. Guess that's how STD writers got their jobs. They write about what they know.
That would be
the girl in the second episode of the series, who's basically saying she's ill-equipped to cope with what's going on in the ship, is now the #1.
There's at least a dozen other candidates, but anyway,
they fail upward.
Yeah. So what about all the people on Discovery that are going through the command program? Instead of some engineer, some ensign engineer,
right?
Fucking hell.
No shit.
Yeah, and 2 more super chats, then we're caught up. Lost Jedi 22 says for $5. Imagine 20 years ago saying that the greatest thing about modern Star Trek is that it's gay.
Great point.
And then we got a massive one from Arthur Brogdon, who sent us $50. Oh,
Man.
thank you so much.
Man.
That's again, that helps keep the lights on, so we really appreciate that. And he says, "Spare me the Nimoy halo. I met him in late 1977 during his I Am Not Spock campus tour. While he was negotiating the dollars for Star Trek the Motion Picture. When the money got right, he rode that pony into the grave. At least Shatner saw it for what it was and said so."
Oh, don't get us wrong. We're never anybody who has rose-tinted glasses about the stars of these shows. We understand that they're actors and they're working. We were the first ones to point out that Patrick Stewart is the last person you want to ask about what Picard would do.
Yeah.
Because that's how we got pew-pews and dune buggies.
Yeah, and that's how we got Die Hard on the Enterprise.
Exactly. Like, I mean, and again, I mean, Shatner, granted, he probably has the best grasp on his character of all the people we've talked about because he's actually sat down and wrote novels and shit. Well, I mean, that's one thing. And the other part of it is, yeah, he's never been disingenuous about the fact that it's something that he does for money and it's just a show and so on and so forth. And again, I as far as Nimoy, I respect him as an actor. The character itself, though, I can separate from the actor. And the character is what is being disrespected. So I get where you're coming from. And thank you so much for the very generous super chat at the same time, Arthur.
Absolutely. And with that, we are caught up on super chats.
Awesome. So since we got Az here for just a few moments, I don't want to keep him too much longer because I know he's a busy man and we love him so much.
And it's late in the UK.
What was that, Andre?
And it's getting late in the UK.
Yeah, it's getting late for you guys. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's getting really late for you guys. So far, I mean, did you just watch... Now, were you like Mr. H as... Did you start watching season 3 of Discovery and not watch the first 2 seasons? Or did you watch the first 2 seasons? I can't remember, because I know you and Gary started...
I watched the first half of season 1, and I was done after, like, 3 or 4 episodes. I was completely done, but I was like, no, I'm gonna, see it through. Let's see it through. And then it got to halfway through the season, and then Netflix is like, okay, it's going on a Christmas hiatus, and I was just like, good, I'm out, I'm done. I couldn't muster the energy to go back, and then Gary wanted me to do a video with him about the first 3 episodes of the season, so I had to watch the first 3 episodes of this season, and I thought, fuck you for making me watch these.
That's the same reaction we got from Mr. H.
I'm gonna make some money, do my Batgirl-esque reviews of Discovery for the rest of the season, see if I can claw back not brain cells, but at least coin in the process.
But
it's just trash. It's not good. It's not exciting. It's not interesting. It's not well written. It's not well acted. It's just trash. And I think the biggest sin for the series for me, more than anything, is there isn't a single solitary episode that I have seen that I would even consider watching again for entertainment purposes. And I think that's the show's biggest failing, is it's not an interesting show. It's a boring show that's devoid of ideas, devoid of direction. And it just so happens to be fitted with absolute garbage characters.
It's pure bollocks, as you would say.
It's right? Definitely bollocks.
Bollocks. Okay. I like having a Brit here. It's awesome. Anyway, what else can we say about Star Trek Discovery other than it sucks ass?
Let's hope it gets cancelled.
And I hope it gets canceled. I think Beavis and Butthead can say it best.
The fuck?
What about anything else to say, Andre, before we go? Rob, before we go?
I would say one thing. Do you remember that South Park episode, the one where they go to Denmark because you have like this Dane that's trolling them all, that's like trolling the internet, and they have like this like Danish troll song in the background?
Yes.
As I was watching the episode, I had like that Danish troll music going on repeat in my mind the whole time.
Well, they are trolling us.
Because I felt that I was like, we're being trolled here.
We are.
Like, I actually had to go and listen to that song afterwards. Just
like,
to,
is that really what I was hearing in your mind? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, because like I got it stuck on repeat in my mind, so I had to listen to the full song. Because you only have like a bit and piece of that song in the South Park version. I mean, there's lyrics and everything to it too. So
well, it's better than the Underwear Gnome song, at least.
Yeah,
it could be worse.
Yeah. Anyway, that's a pretty catchy song. But anyway, that's like the thing that I felt, that I was being trolled.
We are. That's what I was saying before. We are totally not only being trolled. They are deliberately trying to piss us off.
Well, as Kurtzman himself said, it's not about Star Trek, it's about using it as a platform.
Are you talking about the tra-la-la-la-la-la-la?
No, I'm just talking about Discovery.
No, Andre.
Yeah, no, like this.
The South Park one. Yeah, I know the episode.
Yeah, the South Park one. Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember any troll in it.
Yeah, that's the different song.
Yeah, like the Ching Chang Chu Lucy Dai song. That's the one I'm talking about.
I'll have to see it again. I can't remember now. It's been a while since I watched that episode. At least those I do have all on Blu-ray, so they can't take any episodes away from me there, like they do on streaming. So yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that's the final thing I want to say. It reminds me of the Danish troll song.
That's what I was. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank everybody for the super chats. We did get one more. I think we did not address from.
Did we?
Captain Hare. The one and only says, Andre, your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to make sure Az makes that Ghostbusters stream.
No.
Don't tell him what it is beforehand if needed. Well, we can't force him to watch the movie. I mean, that's the only thing. He has to be willing enough to watch the movie on his end. Unfortunately,
hey, can I say something really crass?
Go for it.
I want to say something really crass, but it's audience. You have to understand where I'm coming from here. I would only watch this film if I was going to make money. You see,
I get where he's coming from.
To kill my fucking brain cells with that film. And don't get me wrong, you
could at least do a review afterwards. There is
the
that
stream would be
aspect,
hilarious, and I'd enjoy it immensely.
You could do that.
What I'm trying to say is, that, there are certain things in life, folks, where you just got to say no.
But that's the thing, is I have to respect you on that, because
what I'm hearing is everyone has a price.
Yes,
and Andre will discuss that with you after the show.
No. That's not what that was for. That was not what that was for. It would be one of these things I'd do on my channel, on my own. I wouldn't put any other people through it. I wouldn't dare.
No, I wouldn't.
I wouldn't want to lose friends.
Asking you to do that unless you really were interested in joining us, then we would obviously, more than, the door is open anytime, that, of course. So, yes. But anyway, with that, I think we should probably hang this up. What do you think, Andre?
Yeah, I think we've said everything there is to say about these two episodes. We already subjected Mr. H to suffering by introducing him to Star Trek Discovery, so let's not get a reputation for being the ones that go and traumatize fellow YouTubers. So.
Let's have a whip around, says Kip. Thank you, Kip. That's nice.
Well, yeah, with that, I'd like to thank absolutely everyone who's been watching. It's been a blast doing this for you, although it was absolutely not a blast watching what was necessary to put oneself through in order to do so.
Robert is always awesome to have on, and Az was a very surprise welcome guest, of course, as always. So Yeah, that part we do adore is getting to talk to our friends. At least that's a big upside.
That's the one cool thing, and it's very, very fun to have Mr. H come on to take.
Even though we torture him, and I don't think he's going to talk to us again, but
oh no, he'll be back for more. He's just busy editing his movie that he just filmed. So everyone also, yeah, that's
so much suffering.
That's what abusers say.
Hey, I can't help it.
Yeah.
All right, folks. Thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it. And until next time,